It's extremely uncomfortable that only 2% of funding goes to female founders, but it's almost like it's become normalized and it's numb and it's just a statistic.
But why do you think it is that women are so much a smaller portion of the people who are willing to break the norm?
Women are asked much more about their past track record, whereas men get asked about their future potential.
Your greatest freedom is on the other side of your greatest fear.
Welcome to the next episode of the Entrepreneurial Excellence podcast. Some people build companies, some people build movements. Today's guest builds empires and teaches millions of women to build their own. Lisa Carmen Wang, known musically as Batty Lee, is a USA Hall of Fame gymnast, turned entrepreneur, investor, best-selling author, global speaker, and creator of the Bad Bitch Empire, a movement redefining feminine power, wealth, and freedom. She's the author of the Bad Bitch Business Bible, hosts the Bad Bitch Empire podcast, and a former competitive gymnast who also won 4 USA National Championships before turning your discipline and fire over into the entrepreneurship world in angel investing and also artistic expression. She's helped women raise over $50 million, spoken on over 100 plus different stages, including Forbes Power Women Summit, Harvard Mobile World Congress, YPO, and has been recognized as Forbes 30 Under 30, Entrepreneur Magazine's 100 Most Powerful Women, and Red Bull Hero of the Year. Today, she fuses art, music, and unapologetic leadership to teach women how to reclaim their voice, wealth, boundaries, and power. Lisa, welcome to Entrepreneurial Excellence. What part did I get wrong there?
I also run a venture capital fund, which is a Bad Bitch Empire fund, investing in high-growth female-led tech companies.
So investing in bad bitches who are crushing it and building cool companies.
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty dope. Amazing. And so Lisa also is the founder of a half a dozen plus companies and all these other things. We want to talk through all of those pieces. Before we get started, I ask a question of every single guest right at the beginning. How do you define entrepreneurial excellence? Like, what does that mean to you to be a great entrepreneur?
It's the ability to set a big vision and continuously go after it no matter how many times you fail, because as we all know, excellence is not achieved on the first try or the second try or oftentimes even the 100th try. It's all of those times that we don't show, the low lows, the times where you're feeling dejected, where you're getting rejected, when you fall flat on your face. And entrepreneurial excellence is that ability to get back up again and still stay true to your vision, your North Star, no matter what comes your way.
And so I love that. And I agree. And I think just keep going is one of the most underappreciated virtues in a sense, in having that tenacity in a sense. Why do you think you needed to create something like Bad Bitch Empire to help women be that tenacious founder and entrepreneur? Like, why did that need to exist and didn't exist previously?
I had to create something so audacious and a brand that was going to challenge me and really push me out of my comfort zone. Because previously I'd started a company called SheWorks, and that was a really powerful company and pivotal time in my entrepreneurial journey, helping women raise over $50 million in capital. But at the end of the day, I still felt that there was this part of me that hadn't been truly unleashed because I was still conforming to the patriarchal standards of the business world. And I felt like I couldn't fully unleash that biggest, most confident, most unapologetic version of myself. And within that brand, where I think a lot of female empowerment brands still lie within the business world, it was incredible, but still very palatable, very acceptable. And over again, we see that in order to push the status quo and really pioneer, you need to make people feel uncomfortable. And as it pertains to women empowerment and just the women's movement, every time we've made a huge leap forward, it's because there's been a woman who's been willing to put herself out there to make people feel uncomfortable. Because, I mean, it's extremely uncomfortable that only 2% of funding goes to female founders, but it's almost like it's become normalized and it's numb and it's just a statistic. And so when I thought of the term bad bitch, it was really about the opposite of good girl and good girl brainwashing, which we'll dive into deeper. But good girl brainwashing being all of the societal media messages that tell women to be polite and pleasing and obedient and submissive to these invisible rules of the status quo. And when you bring in a brand like Bad Bitch Empire into the professional world, especially, it wakes people up. It makes people think, like, what is this? And who is the type of woman who is willing to put her name behind a brand like Bad Bitch Empire?
So a lot of questions from that. One, I want to figure out who that woman is and understand why you were willing to do that and go in a different direction. But before we even get to that question, why do you think that? So I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, you have to be willing to have an idea that is audacious and different and stands out, right? Arguably the best companies in the world are the ones that most people don't understand at first. They say no, right? Airbnb got said no to, hundreds of times by investors before they finally made to create like their own cereal boxes basically to get funding. And now they're part of our standard travel itinerary. Like everyone looks at them. But why do you think it is that women are so much a smaller portion of the people who are willing to break the norm and move out of that? Whereas, like you said, like 98% of funding goes to men. I don't think, and you can tell me if I'm very wrong on this, it's not necessarily because the VCs are sexist. It's maybe because there are, for whatever reason, fewer women out there pitching these audacious big ideas, whereas men are like just more confident. Like what's happening there, like to create this difference?
There's definitely implicit bias, subconscious, from both female and male investors.
Yeah.
We have just, again, been normalized to think that a, white male college dropout, from Stanford or Harvard, or even they don't even need to be from a top tier school, just a regular guy who doesn't care much about, fashion or anything else. It's like he's in tech, he's really nerdy, he maybe looks kind of weird. Like that's going to be your billionaire founder. Even something as simple as women are, it's like damned if we do, damned if we don't. It's like if we pitch a really big idea, a lot of times it's like, well, who is she to think that she can do that? What's your track record? Women are asked much more about their past track record, whereas men get asked about their future potential. And so there's been Harvard Business Review studies that have shown that over 60%, 66% of the questions, 2/3 asked to women, are about past track record, and are about competitiveness. So how are you going to compete with X big company when you don't have the funding or you don't have the track record? And versus a man where it's going to be like, what's your vision? Who are you going to hire to achieve your vision? And like those very subtle questions, it's like what is asked, what is not asked. And many women also talk about how they are forced to change how they look, change how they dress, change how they speak so that they sound and look more masculine. And we're also punished for if you are in a relationship, if you're not in a relationship, if you're pregnant, if you're not pregnant. There's all these additional factors that shouldn't be considered, but are, even age, right? Older women are punished, whereas older men are seen as more experienced. So there's myriad factors around that, but it really, for me, got to the point where I just, like many women, got so tired of trying to fit myself in a box. And I stepped back and asked, why am I trying to fit in this box in the first place? Why am I chasing the approval of people who never even attempt to understand where I'm coming from in the first place?
Yeah, which respect, by the way. How are you able, though, to have even the confidence to say, I'm going to break all these norms, right? I mean, like looking at your background, and maybe we should talk through some of that, right? I mean, you went to Yale, you did all the things, you were probably like a good daughter to your parents. Like, I don't really know, but like you probably were doing all the right things. And then suddenly you go in this different path, like what, and you were this world-class gymnast and everything else. Like what made you to say, I can break all the norms and go in a completely different direction? How did you get that confidence to move from being inside the box standard? And tell me if I'm wrong. I'm just taking like based on your background, like you might have been that person. How did you break out and why did you decide you even needed to break out since things were going pretty well for you?
Yeah. And you were right. I mean, the whole Bad Bitch Business Bible in my book is based off of my own experiences as what I call a good girl, a straight A student, gold medal winning gymnast, shy, obedient, daughter of immigrants, did whatever I could to fit in and not call attention to myself in terms of being different, because being one of the few Asian girls in a very white Midwestern town growing up and being made fun of for looking different, I just wanted to blend in, but at the same time, I wanted to achieve, because that's how you received love and acceptance from your family. And so, for most of my life growing up, I was a very obedient and introverted good girl. And also going into college, going into my first career as a hedge fund analyst on Wall Street, I think it really wasn't until my second, after I sold SheWorks, after the acquisition of my first company, where I thought, this is it. That's what every entrepreneur wants, is to get to an exit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I had built a thriving community. I had created a lot of impact for my purpose of helping female entrepreneurs. And I felt that something was misaligned. And it was this feeling of still not feeling good enough. And that's a feeling that's driven me for quite some time. In fact, my very first podcast, you can probably still search for it on iTunes, is the Enoughness podcast, where I was asking myself, when am I ever going to feel good enough? How much do I have to achieve before I feel good enough? And that was back in 2014. So I was already doing that inner work to ask myself, who is the highest version of myself, and at what point do I feel truly fulfilled? And so it was that realization that it wasn't going to be another big achievement that was going to help me feel enough. And I realized it was something that was inside. And I think the biggest thing for me was really realizing that I didn't feel fully expressed and alive. And when I closed my eyes and I asked myself this question, this is the one question I've asked myself over a decade at least, which is, who is the most powerful and authentic version of me? And when I closed my eyes, I envisioned this woman who was outgoing and confident and just like so many levels higher than I was. And it had nothing to do about the achievements or the accomplishments. It was the way she held herself. It was the way she spoke. It was the way her magnetic energy. When I opened my eyes, I was like, why don't I feel like that? And oh my God, I'm still so far away from that version of me. And it's like one of those things where you can say, I want to be more confident, but you can't just, it's hard to bridge that gap when you don't feel confident. And you're like, how do I just do that?
But I think so many people feel like they are making it, faking it until they make it sort of thing. And even then they still feel like they're an outsider. For so many people, I think it's a very standard founder story, because they don't feel normal. So they have to go forge their own path. And then where do you think you are now? Like, have you become that woman you imagined?
I am definitely the woman that I imagined in that version of me, but I'm always becoming. Like, I'm always leveling up. Like now I have to do that again, because as I'm moving from professional world accomplishments into like this world of being a artist, like a musical artist and a creative, it's like a whole new Wild West, where in some ways in this industry, they reward crazy. They reward like just weird stuff. And I have never actually really tapped into actually even optimize my life for weirdness and play and creativity, like unencumbered creativity. Because even when I was launching Bad Bitch Empire, it was still optimizing for like confidence and power and professional success. And one of the very first things that people said to me when I entered the music industry just 6 months ago was, you need to be less like, let go of that professional stiffness that you have, which is what is necessary to cultivate in order to fit into business, tech, venture capital investment conferences and rooms.
What made you decide, I mean, this is sort of interesting too, like what made you decide to go into the music industry in general and be like Batty Lee and like build this DJ music business that you're building? And all, like, why like you finally hit all those metrics that you were trying to shoot for from 2014 to build Bad Bitch Empire, build a show name for yourself, this VC fund, all these things. Why rock the boat essentially and go in a totally new direction? Like that's badass. but it's also like, that's a big risk too, right? It's something brand new and you built all this capital, not just like dollar wise, but name wise and name recognition wise in a certain space. A lot of people don't have the guts to go do something brand new. Why did you do that?
Yeah. I have developed this muscle where I really like feeling uncomfortable. Like I really like feeling out of like my comfort zone because I know that's the space where I grow. And growth is the thing that makes me happiest. And growth, especially around my identity and who I am and like who I can become, because I've proven to myself I can do whatever I put my mind to. But at the end of the day, it's not the accomplishment of what has been done. It's the woman I've become in the process of doing that thing. And that's the reward, because when people say like, what are you most proud of from everything you've done? It's like, yes, I'm really proud of helping so many women and, creating so much impact and like creating, communities and environments where people get to connect. But on a personal level, I'm really proud of how I put myself out there. And as an introvert, like to become this version of me where people literally cannot imagine me as an introvert when they meet me.
Really?
And I'm like,
I would love to like be sitting, like reading a book by myself right now. And they're like, oh my God, you're so extroverted. You're so social.
Yeah. Yeah. And so with the music thing, I'm a rapper. So I put out my rap song, rap and hip hop. It's kind of my zone right now. And so first there's the artist and then why rap. So when it came to being an artist, I remember a conversation I had with a friend like 10 years ago, and we were talking about asking each other, like, who do you think I would be if I didn't have to live in this capitalistic society and you could just be whoever you wanted to be? And she said to me, like, you would definitely be an artist. And I'm like, what? And at that point, I was working in Wall Street. So I was like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I'm like, I can't paint. I don't know how to draw. Like, it just never, like, this version of me now even is like never crossed my mind, even 2 years ago, much less 10 years ago. And so it's interesting, fast forward now, where I was like, okay, I've done the corporate finance thing. I've done the entrepreneurship thing. I've even, wrote a book, and that was like my big dream for a while. Like one day I want to write a book, and then I did that. I started podcasts, I started a venture fund, and I launched business coaching, done a bunch of investing, and I was like, I don't know, there's still something more. There's still a part of me that hasn't been unleashed. And there, music just brings people to a different frequency. And it's the fastest way to change how someone feels, someone's energy, change someone's mood. And I made a joke once that Bad Bitch Empire sounded less like a venture fund and more like a rap hip hop album. And I think the universe heard me. And I love listening, like when I listen to like female rappers and they're like so unapologetic, so confident. And they're like, arrogant in the best way, where they're like, I'm the shit, and in rap, you get to do that. And because that's what the genre entails. It's like you talk about how awesome you are. And that's something that's very uncomfortable for most women. It's like socially unacceptable for a woman to brag, which is something I talk about in my book, about how a bad bitch owns her wins. And so I, ended up getting into rap in a really interesting way, but I would say I definitely manifested it. I actually met my first producer at a family office conference where I was speaking about investing.
That's crazy.
And I pitched myself, and he asked me if I'd ever rapped before, and I said I could. And he said, have you ever been in a music studio before? And I said, I've been in a podcast studio. But I don't know, there was something in me, that sort of conviction, where I was like, this is my pitch. And I'm so used to pitching myself, as an entrepreneur, you're always selling yourself. And I said, I may never have been in a music studio, but I'm a former champion gymnast. I am a great public speaker. I have rhythm. I was a former hip hop dancer. I have a brand. I have a message. And in this book, I have 200 plus pages of words that I have personally written. And all you got to do is put these to a beat.
Yeah, I love that.
And he said, you got a point there, because there are so many talented artists, but most artists don't know who they are. They don't have a brand. They don't have an identity. And he's like, you're 80% there, more than most artists, because you know who you are and what you stand for. And that's something that we need more of in rap. And also, there are not enough Asian female rappers. So I'm like, when we talk about competitive space, like white space available, I'm like, I could be the top.
You're like, dope. I can go do this.
I can crush this.
Even still, like, that's such a crazy thing. Okay, so what did your kind of immigrant parents think of you going in this direction, or were they also already shocked by their daughter creating something called Bad Bitch Empire?
I mean, I think at this point they're just like, she's just gonna do whatever she's gonna do. I'm an adult now, and I was again afraid. I was afraid to kind of say, because of course they're like, well, how do you make money? What's the business model? And I'm like, which is what they asked me when I became an entrepreneur. And even back then I was like, I don't know. But like, as an entrepreneur, you figure out the business model. It's like, I'm like, if not now, then when?
Yeah.
And that's really one of those things. It's like, especially as an artist, it's like, I'm not starting when I'm like Taylor Swift was, 13 or something. And most of these artists, like, I'm starting as a like fully fledged adult. And so you don't see a lot of, especially women, going from where I was to the artist.
What do you think? I mean, you've had so many successes kind of everywhere you go. And listening to your story, I'm like inspired by it, but I'm also like, oh, you make it sound so easy. Sure, like I'm just going to go become a rapper and build this whole music empire. What do you think makes you different, right? When you think through, is it some of like just the tenacity you have, the immigrant background? What do you think has pushed you to be this like just super successful at everything, and then obviously having this confidence to say, oh, I can also go be a rap mogul basically and build something amazing? Like, where did you gain that confidence to say, yeah, like I'm gonna figure it out in YOLO? Like, life is only, you only live once, life is short. I'm gonna go do this next thing and I'm probably gonna go crush it the fuck out of it.
Yeah, I mean, what you guys aren't hearing is the many, many sleepless nights of existential crises and fear and crying and breakdowns and all that stuff. I think maybe what makes me different is I do it in spite of all of that.
Do you, in spite of it, do you almost want to like prove it wrong, like prove that crime, be like, all right, I'm crying and I'm like scared about this, but I'm gonna prove myself that I can get it done. And it's like,
yeah, it's like a challenge. It's like I'm my own biggest, obstacle.
Yeah.
And it's just an obstacle. Like, so one of my favorite books is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And it's this, he's the father of the study of self-image. And I read that over a decade ago, and it was about how you can change your self-image. And most people, you can have someone who's extremely beautiful and she looks in the mirror and she thinks she's ugly and fat. And then you can have someone who's, ugly and fat, by societal standards. And she thinks she's the most beautiful person. And she might actually walk there with the confidence and the beautiful energy and actually ends up being more attractive to someone because of of her own self-image.
100%.
And so I think that's always stuck with me in terms of like identity and my self-image, which is, I grew up thinking that I was odd and different, like I didn't belong, that I was very shy and introverted, that, I was always afraid to even speak in class because I was like, it was like I had this blocked throat chakra. Like I spent all my time in the library because I could not speak in front of people. Got choked up and was so focused on all the ways I wasn't good enough, all the ways I wasn't perfect enough. And so it's been like my life's work has been changing my own self-image and my inner dialogue to be like, how do I go from my worst critic to my biggest cheerleader? And it's still a work in progress. It's not like I'm not there yet, but it's like I can hear the voice in my head that says, oh, it's not going to work. And then immediately have another voice that I've trained that says, okay, what good is it to you to say that it's not going to work?
Yeah, I love that.
And yeah, so it's like I've developed that like cheerleader voice that can at least like notice when my negative voice is there and be like, what good is it doing for me to not believe?
But you also need, I mean, I kind of imagine for you, but also every entrepreneur, you always need to have that level of drive to be a perfectionist to some extent, to do better. You know, I'm always in the back of my head, I'm always like, oh my God, is this podcast great? Am I doing a good job? And like, I'm always needing those things too in with a lot of my work. But I think the best entrepreneurs are ones who are continuously pushing themselves. Like, you wouldn't have been a world-class gymnast, as just one example, had you not saying, I need to be perfect. And that can be really debilitating, that drive for perfection. But also it meant you had all these achievements that people probably look down on. Now there's a trade-off, right? I think there's a huge trade-off between sort of greatness and what it takes to get there and the costs of that. But it's also required to some extent. Like, you're never going to be a great rap artist if you aren't your worst critic and your harshest critic for yourself. Because like, only you can judge yourself. Like, no, like that rap song that I just made in my house by myself was terrible. Like, and you do it 10 times and 10 or 1,000 times before it gets really good.
Yeah. The difference is that before, let's say as a gymnast, where you're literally judged for not being good enough, like score deduction for one toe being unpointed, like being 2 pounds too heavy, is that when I was younger, me scrutinizing how I wasn't perfect enough was directly correlated to my self-worth and me feeling like I am less worthy. Whereas today, I am, very critical of my songs. I'm like, let's hit it. Let's re-hit it. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. But when I'm saying it's not good enough or this needs to be improved, I'm talking about the product. I'm not talking about me. Like, as in, I am less worthy as a human being, or I suck.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not that kind of level of degradation of self. It's just like, yeah, I can do better. Let's work harder on this.
I mean, I love that. And so sort of separating those two things, are there any secrets that you have for people other than, of course, reading your book, to head in that direction for themselves, right? Not just women, of course, men too, to move from that world where it's like, you can be wonderful and a great individual while still pushing yourself really hard to achieve and become that great entrepreneur for your own brand, for yourself, for your business, whatever it is you're an entrepreneur for.
The number one thing is just really, like, I think in terms of growth and what makes me the most proud of myself that I think I would recommend to others is like, where is your biggest fear? Like, ask yourself, like, what is your biggest fear? Because your greatest freedom is on the other side of your greatest fear. And I think a lot of people are unwilling to just stare at that fear, straight in the face and like literally walk through it.
Yeah.
And realize like, it's not just like, I'm afraid to fail. It's like, dig so deep into, that fear, let's say fear of failure is so deeply rooted in your like deep feeling of being unloved by your father, and that, or whatever it is, or it's that you actually think deep down that you're a worthless piece of shit. And like, I don't know, like a lot of people have really, really deep stuff, right? And they're like, and then they look at it and they're like, deep down, I think I'm a horrible person, but I can cover all that up with the amount of money I make, with the amount of success I make, or the amount of people who like me or followers. Like for me, deep down, it was like fear of failure, fear of being worthless if I fail. There were a lot of things that I had to overcome. And ultimately it's like, how do I just do it? And like get through it and
push through, basically, right? You just stared at it and said, I'm going to go get better every single day.
Yeah. I mean, like, and getting past that fear can take a year. It can take years, literally. It's like, when you look at my social media, like on my Instagram, like people are like, whoa, how are you so confident? How do you put out so much content? And I'm like, it took me like 100 posts of like deep anxiety pressing publish, like, oh, what if people don't like this? I'd like think about it for like 6 hours before I could like figure out the right caption, perfectionist about it, post it and be like, oh, I don't like how I look on there, whatever. And I'd be like, my challenge is to press publish and keep it up.
Yep.
Even if I find all the things that are wrong with it the moment I publish it, and then my heart drops because nobody's liking it, because that's a deep rejection of who I am, because no one's liking that post, even though I put so much, that's like some of the narrative that goes through my head. And then sitting with that discomfort of like, I feel deeply rejected. I feel very exposed and vulnerable. I feel like all the work that I've put into, putting myself out there, this piece of writing, this, photograph, this video that I worked so hard on, I'm sitting with the fact that I failed on that post and just people don't like me. And so, again, all of those childhood wounds come up from one social media post.
Crazy.
I think a lot of people have that, like this visibility and vulnerability fear. And I'm like, okay, that sucked. I never want to do that again. It's like, let's do it again the next day.
But be a little bit better, presumably. Like next time you're going to be a little bit better. Think about what you can improve and get better each time, or no?
Maybe, but it's also like, maybe for the next 2 weeks, you keep hitting post and you still feel extremely uncomfortable. You still feel really rejected. You still feel like people hate you because they don't like your stuff. And maybe you don't feel any different. And it still sucks. But most people will give up after the first, couple times. They're like, yeah, I never want to post again. Like, it's much easier for me to just not build my brand and like sit quietly so I'm not judged.
And it said, say, you know what, I'm going to be a bad bitch and get out there and do it. So on that note, talk me through this idea of good girl brainwashing and what that means for a lot of women out there in general, and certainly women, maybe or maybe not women founders.
Yeah. So good girl brainwashing, all the societal and media messages that tell women to play small, to be obedient to the status quo, to stay silent, and to just be, nice and don't rock the boat and don't prioritize yourself, put everyone else above you, and like just be palatable. So basically it's the type of messaging that says, don't prioritize your dreams. Don't prioritize yourself. Don't be big. Don't be loud. Don't be proud. And that's being a nice, modest woman. Again, that's a message that's been perpetuated across centuries, across countries and different ethnicities and cultures. It's just, that's a good woman. And then the moment a woman is loud and proud and opinionated and assertive and confident, there's this thing in our culture where we don't like women like that. We don't like women who have opinions, who are loud and proud. And then we use words like, oh, she's a bitch because she's too assertive and too pushy and too opinionated.
People don't say that about men. In some ways it's the opposite. You could argue
this is a great leader.
I was going to say our current president is sort of rewarded for being very loud and rude and doing a lot of things that most people would consider inappropriate in a lot of cases, but he's rewarded for that with votes.
Yeah. And he's creating a culture where that's okay in boys and men. So more men feel entitled to be able to act that way because you have the leader of a country acting that way. And if a woman were ever to do even a fraction of what he does, like she would.
Hillary Clinton is sort of a good example on the other side of that, right? She did all the right things in many cases and like followed all the rules and was really qualified in many ways to be in that role. And Trump made fun of her in a lot of different ways, in all the sort of this standard ways to negatively say things about women. Which was completely inappropriate, but he won the election despite that. So how do women break past this mindset and get past that brainwashing? Is it just saying like, I'm better than all of that? And what do they have to do to succeed?
Taking back your power is really realizing that your own opinion of yourself is the most valuable one. And everyone in some way is conditioned to, contort themselves to fit into society, but women have that exponentially more because we are groomed from a young age to care more about what the male opinion thinks of us than what we think about ourselves. So whereas men might care about what other men think, women are also taught like a man's opinion is more important. A man's opinion of my body is more important than my own opinion of my body. A man's opinion of my sexuality is more important than my own love for my body. A man's opinion of, how I work is more valuable than what I think about how I work. And so we center the male opinion and we center other people's opinions because it's, I need to be a good mom. I need to be a good wife. I need to be a good girlfriend. I need to be a hard worker. But we're not trained from a young age to be like, prioritize your own dreams and be like, be an unapologetic bad bitch.
Yeah.
Even if the boys don't like you, even if the other girls are jealous of you, follow your heart because you know you have special superpowers that other people don't. You have, intuition, you have emotional intelligence, you have this level of, nurturing and empathy that is innate in you. And like, let's foster that instead of like, focus on how you can look most attractive so that men will like you.
Yeah. Are there other women who you look up to who you think have done this really well, as like who are really good role models for this mindset?
What I will say is like who I look up to, especially in this era, because it's like I look up to a combination of Madonna and Rihanna.
Yeah.
So like when you think about Madonna and how controversial she was because she was one of the few women who was like, I'm gonna be a unapologetic woman. I'm gonna embrace my voice. I'm going to embrace my style. I'm gonna embrace my sexuality. I'm gonna embrace my words, and I'm just gonna do me. And the fact that she did that was just so controversial.
Yeah.
I think that like today it's obviously set a different precedent, but yeah, again, like every time a woman really just puts herself out there, it's like she's gonna get a lot of hate, and that just comes with part of the territory.
Why do you think it was hard to come up with, or maybe so like hard to come up with female entrepreneurs who fit that mold as well, who sort of hit that mark? Because, and I use that in contrast, right? There are lots and lots of very successful female artists, right? Lots and lots of female artists that are successful. There's a decent number of even female athletes, right? Like Serena Williams is my example. Has like been a fantastic, obviously very successful on the court, but also has become a badass entrepreneur herself, an investor. But there aren't as many women entrepreneurs, right? If I think through the list of like famous entrepreneurs in general, it's pretty much all men initially that come to mind. Why is that part of the world been excluded? Entrepreneurial versus the other areas where obviously women are at least 50% of the population. Frankly, nowadays, women are much more educated overall than men, at least the statistics coming out of college. And yet the amount of money that goes to women entrepreneurs and just overall numbers, it still is dwarfed by the number of men. Like, why is that?
I mean, also you can look at the number of investors. Like women don't make up the majority of investors. And when, so it's like in terms of funding, so there's kind of like two sides of the coin. But also if the majority of investors are men and a woman comes and pits a menstrual product, men are going to be like, is that real? Or a jewelry company. And they're like, well, is that, again, why is this jewelry different than anything else? And then you look at, again, even like the Kardashians, and it's like they're selling, it's like Skims, like well-fitted bodysuits.
Yeah.
And if you try to tell a man like well-fitted bodysuits are going to sell this, or like this kind of lipstick is going to sell, they're going to be like, why would I fund that?
Yeah.
But a female investor, if you have many more female investors who are like, yes, I get it. I understand the market. I understand the culture and why this is required and why women want this and where the purchasing power is, then it's a lot faster to, actually fund that.
So I agree, but I'll actually push back a little bit on that. So one, I agree in some senses. Like I will say, by the way, my sister-in-law is a badass founder. She is the founder of Third Love, the bra company. And so I've seen her path, and like definitely like they had some more trouble fundraising a little bit because it was a bra company and all that stuff. And it was different for a lot of the men. They were able to do it. But the pushback is more around the idea of, there weren't initially, I'm sure if we went back 30 years ago, 40 years ago, all the producers, from music producers and money in music, were probably all men as well. And it might still be today. I don't know that industry. Maybe it still is generally men. And yet female artists probably make up at least 50% of the receipts and money that's coming in, if not more than that, right? I mean, Taylor Swift and Beyonce are just crushing it. I can't think of male artists that are doing anywhere close to as good. So why is that the case in the music industry, where it either certainly was mostly men and maybe still is today, whereas in the entrepreneurial space, it is mostly men funders, but there's so many fewer women?
When you think about music and entertainment, a big part of that is the forward facing. It's the performance, it's the fashion, it's the look, it's the aura, it's the charisma and the energy. And how many founders, male founders in Silicon Valley are we saying like, he's the one because of his incredible personality and charisma and fashion sense and,
Totally.
Yeah.
But those men are successful in many cases, some cases because they're technically proficient, but other cases because they're really good storytellers, right? They're like really good storytellers. They're good. They have that charisma. They can tell that story. They can convince investors to do it. And obviously, like, I very much believe women are just as talented at that, if not more so, right? It's your point even. They definitely are, right? Women artists are so successful. So once again, I know I'm pushing you a bunch here, but like, why is this difference between the female artists in the world and female entrepreneurs? What's missing between those two? Is it the level of ambition? Is it the ideas? Even your point you're making, like a lot of the women biggest companies in many cases have been female oriented products, right? Bras or skims or makeup or things like that. Like how do we inspire women to go past those things and really push the boundaries?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is so nuanced because like there's like so many levels with it. Like one example, again, the reason I was talking about like the forward facing is the number of conversations I've had with women who are pitching VCs, particularly male VCs, is the conversation around, I purposely have to make myself uglier, not wear makeup, wear ugly clothes, like just a t-shirt where you can't see my body and like look disheveled, so that they can think I'm a serious founder. Because if I were to, like one of the things I've really loved, like coming to the creative industry is like, I get to dress the way that I dress and I don't walk into every room with a derogatory question. And it's not even a derogatory, but there's like, oh, you work in fashion and marketing, right? I'm like, just because I take care of my appearance and that makes me feel confident, you automatically think I'm less serious. And so that's an example of conforming to a patriarchal norm of you can't be serious if you look good. So, women are like, I'll wear glasses. I'll like wear just all these things, like make sure I don't wash my hair for 3 days so it looks greasy so that guy will think that I'm serious. And again, that can change once you reach a certain level, right? We're not talking Kim Kardashian level. We're not talking like Series D and beyond, but it's like at that seed level where most women are stuck, which is, I think there's so much additional psychological burden of like, okay, I need to think about how I'm perceived here. What do they think of this? If I wear this, if I say this, if I, like the amount of things women need to think about, like, oh, I need to take off my wedding ring because then he's going to think I'm going to have a child soon. And then he'll ask me questions about being married. And then he, will think I'm not serious if I want to be a mom. But men never have to even consider that. And I do remember like one male founder friend I had talked to early on, even talking about an investor hitting on me. And like, that's of course a huge thing that women go through where there's like the dual motive. And he's like, wow, it's never occurred to me how much women need to think about, because when I go into an investor meeting, I just have to care about if he thinks my idea sucks or not, like period. So there's an emotional, just like mental burden that like we have to think about that takes up so much additional bandwidth mentally that detracts from the actual focus on like the company. And then it's like, is he going to think I'm too arrogant and too confident? Or is he going to think I'm too humble versus let me just say my piece? And that's another thing I've had to train myself out of as also a perfectionist, also someone, if you're a perfectionist, you care a lot about what other people think, is like the more I strip out other people's voices, the more I can like clearly hear my own and not hedge my opinions, hedge what I have to say, just say this is my dream, this is my vision, this is what I want to do, without like being like, oh, someone's going to think I'm to this or to that.
Yeah, totally. And when you think through like building a brand, a movement, like a company, right? Like many founders build a product in many cases, right? That's what they're building. You kind of built this global brand with a lot of cultural gravity. What does it take to build a movement in not just a business? Like, how do you go about that? And not just like from a women's perspective, but just in general, like building a brand is like, it's freaking tough. Like, how do you go about doing that? What does it take? How did you decide that needed to happen as part of making this brand and you successful?
Like when I always say I birthed the brand. Like,
I mean, most brands or most businesses are like a baby.
yeah, it has to have like most things, it has to have a reason to exist. And when I birthed the Bad Bitch Empire, it was, I needed, and I saw that women needed a voice, a mission to break free of their own and societally imposed brainwashing. Like they just need to wake up. And from this brainwashing, there are so many ways to do that, right? There's
So why did you choose building this brand is the way to do it, to wake up everyone?
I think I needed it too. Like I needed a challenge. I needed something that would push me to become the next version of myself. And there are so many times just throughout this journey of building Bad Bitch Empire that like so many times I wanted to give up. And throughout, as we know, like in the 3 years, a lot of things change in 3 years. Like you become completely different person in 3 years. And the times in my life where I really was not feeling like a bad bitch, like really low lows. And I looked at the cover of my book and I was like, I cannot be that woman.
Really?
Like I feel like such a fraud because I am feeling not confident. I'm feeling not powerful. I'm feeling like everything the opposite of what my brand stands for right now. The brand is what like pushed me to be like, you got to get up and be her.
You got to be that person.
You got to, no matter how shitty you feel, how many months you feel shitty and you feel like an imposter. It was like, if you're asked to speak on a stage, you can't show up as like sad Lisa. You can't show up as like small Lisa and like apologetic Lisa. Like you need to show up and like embrace the values of the Bad Bitch Empire. You need to embrace the tone, the energy. And then like I would step into being that and embodying that. And then I'd feel like a little bit better. And I'm like, yeah, I do have that version of me inside. And so like even just the whole like concept of Bad Bitch Empire, like within every woman there lives a bad bitch that is probably been suppressed, that's like that like version of you that's just like so unapologetic, that's about going after your dreams, about being your full self, that doesn't care what other people think. Like who would that version of you be? And what would you pursue if you knew you couldn't fail and you had the confidence of Kanye West, like when he went in, which is another thing I channeled when I entered into music, was with my producer. He was like, I would go around initially. I'm like, oh, I'm new. I was really uncomfortable. I'm like a novice, right? And I'm like, I'm a new rapper. Yeah, I've only been doing this for a little bit of time. He's like, stop.
Yeah, just be you. Be like, I'm fucking confident and just go at it.
And he was like, Kanye walked into the rooms when he first started. He was literally laughed out of the music studio. And he was like, I'm going to be the best freaking rapper in the world. And they're like, haha, go away. And it's just like, no, but in his mind, he's like, I am. And he's like, you got to embody it. You got to just be, because that's what people are going to, that's what they're going to rally behind. And so with Bad Bitch Empire, it's like, it's this continual, this is a perfect example, full circle, of what we've been talking about, like how deeply uncomfortable it is to be that big version of yourself, even when you don't feel like it.
But you also need to, I said, the more you embody that, the more you believe it, and the more you become that person. And next thing you know, Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos and all these other famous sort of entrepreneurs were not those people initially, right? They had to work into it and became those people over time. And it takes a lot of practice to become that individual. You just keep working at it every single day to get to that point. So how did you go about, once again, deep dive into like the actual creation of the brand itself. Like, what are the steps you took to even say, like, how does someone go about building their own personal brand when they're like, I want to go build a brand around X.
Mm.
What did that even entail for you? How did you create a plan to go make that happen? And just like start one day and just say, I'm going to start building this brand. Yeah, I have to figure out even what I'm going to call my brand, whatever it is. Like, what were those steps?
So I was writing a lot. I was blogging a lot back then. And I wrote a post about good girl brainwashing. Like that was the first thing that came up. And I posted on Instagram this carousel of, good girl brainwashing, what it is, the symptoms, the good girl habits that come as a result of it, and how to break free of it. And then I hosted a free masterclass talking about that. And the post went viral. Like there were so many women who were like, me too, me too. Oh my God, this perfectly describes like how I feel and like how I grow up. And I was like, okay, there's something here. And there was one comment on the post and it was like, when are you starting Bad Bitch University? And I was like, oh my God, that's such a perfect, like, A to Z transformation, good girl, bad bitch. And then at that time, I was trying to write a book. I was trying to figure out a book proposal. I wrote like 6 different Google Doc iterations of a book and titles and whatever. And it was just like, I think it started with like the Powerful Woman's Playbook or something, and like fearless female, fearless feminine something. But it just like never felt right. And I get when I put that out there and I got like bad bitch, I'm like, okay, bad bitch, like I have something here, good girl, bad bitch. And then I started hosting these like bad bitch brunches just with girlfriends talking about, like, I had different prompts on questions like around good girl brainwashing or like thoughts and stuff. The bad bitch empire like came about at one of those brunches, and I think I got to a point where I was like, okay, like I feel like there needs to be a brand. Like it's gotta, like, what is it? I don't know, but I feel like there needs to be a brand. And then it was like, is it gonna be like Bad Bitch Ventures? Is it gonna be like Bad Bitch? I don't know. They're like different words. Bad Bitch Ventures, like Bad Bitch Collective, Bad Bitch Community. And then we were at the Empire rooftop in New York. And I was like, what about Bad Bitch Empire? And when I said it, I was like, oof, that's too big. That's too big. Like, I don't.
Because I love that. It's like, the whole point is that it's big. It's like,
yeah, but it was like, but I loved it. But I loved it and immediately felt like a bit of fear.
Really?
And discomfort, because I'm like, Empire's big. Can I own that word? Because it's like that simultaneously excitement and fear, like which is the same thing every time. Remember the discomfort. Like the dream needs to be big enough that it excites you, but also that it feels a little scary, because then you know you're on the right track. But yeah, so then I had friends around me and I'm like, can I really own Empire? Like, can I really do that? But I don't even know what it's going to be. But we all were like, Empire, like Bad Bitch Empire is like epic. And I was like, okay, that's what it is. And then, yeah, it started with being a podcast, and I was like, okay, Empire full of bad bitches. Like, let's just, interview a bunch of women who I think have that energy, and we'll see where it goes from there. Then I launched the Bad Bitch Bitcoin Bootcamp, in 2022, helped hundreds of women start investing in crypto. Then we had the Bad Bitch Investor Bootcamp, angel investing for women. Then there was the Bad Bitch Bootcamp, Break Free from Good Girl to Bad Bitch. Then the Bad Bitch Business Bible, the book. I got the book deal. Then the Bad Bitch Empire Venture Fund. And then now we're going to have the Bad Bitch Empire, like, hip hop album.
Yeah.
It's just evolving. And I mean, again, like I'm literally in this place right now where I'm about to finish deploying the fund. So the fund will be, Fund 1 will be finished by the end of this year. And I'm not raising a Fund 2 because, well, obviously I'm focused on the music side of things, but I'm like, okay, we're evolving again. Like, what, where does this go? Is it full 100% music? How much do I keep of the investing in the business? It's a work in progress, and it's always like a living, breathing thing.
But I mean, I love that you're willing to, once again, continuously break norms. I just think so many people are not. They get stuck in a rut. They know what they're good at, and they aren't willing to break out of that. So once again, not that you need my props, but kudos to you for that. Speaking of investing a little bit, you've been obviously both a founder and an investor. What do you think differentiates a pitch that gets funded from a pitch that gets forgotten?
I mean, you talked about it before, storytelling for sure. The founder, like, let's just say the basic, like, subconscious things, like their level of confidence, their like belief in themselves, how big the vision is. And then it goes into how well do they know their business? Like they're leading the narrative, or they're like, let me tell you about the business, about the market. I've done my research inside and out. I know my financials inside and out. Like, if this happened, we're going here. If that happens, that's going there. And just like, I feel like schooled by the end of it, where it's like, wow, this person's just really impressive. They know their shit. And like, and also that like momentum. I think founders who are really good at fundraising and also just like, they have momentum. There's like people who have momentum, and it's like, you can't even explain it. They're like, yep. And you can also tell that they're not reliant on your approval to believe in their vision.
Yeah. No, which is critical. Like, they have that because you want to invest as an investor in someone who has like confidence and can exude that in a variety of different ways. And also, you said, like, they can school you. I want to learn something new and be like, oh, like, stuff I don't understand. And you should. You're the founder. You spent way more time diving deep in that topic than I ever did. I
mean, it's like, let's say if you have two people with the same identical product at the same stage, then it ends up being like the person.
Yeah.
Right. And like, that's everything that we've just talked about today. It's like, what is their level of discomfort? Like, comfort with discomfort. What is their level of, vision and tenacity and ability to fall and get back up again? What is their, willingness to just do things that other people wouldn't do, and like to showcase that that's the type of person that they are. And it's because I do think it's just, I've seen this so many times. It's like, it's almost like no matter what you pursue, when you are self-guided as an entrepreneur, as a musician, it's like, it's everything super competitive.
Yep.
And it's like, are you the type of person who has a self-image and looks in the mirror and says, like, I'm a winner? Like, I am going to succeed against all odds, because you all the odds are against you.
And you'd be willing to keep pushing and get past that. When you think through about like building like Bad Bitch Empire as a empire, like a business, are there certain operational systems you put in place or hires you try to bring on? What does that look like for running a business? And either use your own business as an example or other great ones that you've been a part of or advised.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just like, number one is what my biggest learning has been, like, what I'm not good at.
That's been a huge learning, right? A lot of people think they're good at everything, or they want to try to be good at everything, and they end up saying yes to everything, which then means they're never good at anything, and their business dies because they're not focused. So how did you identify what you're not good at?
Being someone who's like also a high achiever, like I managed to do everything in the beginning, but I realized like there are some things that just come more easily for me. Like, I'm very much a creative and a vision, brand, marketing. Like, I connect with the consumer really well. I do not enjoy operations. I really don't like dealing with logistics. Don't like organizing things. And like, me trying to do that, I can do it. It was just like I would suffer through it and feel like really difficult. And so part of my upbringing was like, to win, you must suffer. So that was another thing. It was more of like, I think everything goes back to mindset.
Yeah. But so how did you get out of it? If it was suffering to do that work, then wouldn't your mindset when you grew up kind of push you, say, I can push through this and keep doing it all the time, and I'm going to get good at it because like this suffering means I'm doing something right, versus saying, no, this suffering means it's just an area I shouldn't be focused on anymore in life. Like, I want to do things, not that they're easy, but things that you enjoy in a different way and that you feel like you can do that's special to you.
Yeah. I mean, it took me a long time to get there. to just realize like there are actually higher like leverage things that I could be doing.
Yeah.
My brain could be used in better ways than focusing on doing this just because I can.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, that's it's the thesis for my company Chore is we take all the operational burden off of founders so they can go build and grow their companies and do the things that they are great at. But so there are other operational. So what are the key things for you that you've said no to, that you pushed off? Is it essentially all those operations, all that other stuff, and you focus on the creative? And then how much do you focus on hiring and building a team? I don't know how many people are at Bad Bitch Empire. Like, what does it all look like for growing and running a business in your mind?
I mean, like right now, we're in a transition moment because I had a whole business coaching arm before. And so there were coaches underneath me that were trained. There was assistants, community managers. But again, like it's not where my focus is anymore. So the venture fund is finishing up. So we had people who were doing due diligence. We had people who were taking the first pitch calls. We had people who, were managing the community of LPs. And now that is being, moved away. And so again, that's kind of what the structure looked like. But then now I have to think about business in a completely different way because I am the talent. And so there's even less I'm technically supposed to do. And it is a very, very interesting exercise for me to realize, like, even all the things I trained myself to do as a founder in order to focus on the craft of being the best artist, all that time where I'm liaising, doing all these other things, like figuring out, like whatever I used to do, it's not where my time is best spent. It's not the highest leverage thing to do as a musical artist. So now I'm looking at, managers and agents and tour organizers and brand partnership managers and social media, and building a very different team around me.
Given this is an area you don't know well, but goes for every entrepreneur to some extent, how do you hire all these people in roles you've never done before? You're never going to do, you don't even know them that well. You don't want to do. Yeah. How do you know if you're choosing the right manager or promoter or social media? Like, how do you your hiring heuristic or rules for getting the right folks?
So I think of all the things. Well, every time I birthed something, it's obviously felt deeply personal. In some ways, being what I'm doing now as a musical artist is the most personal because I am the product. Like everything about me, like there's no buffer between, like, here's my tech company, here's my community, here's my brand. It's just like, buy me, listen to me, which is, again, a very uncomfortable thing that I deal with because now it's like, promote me, promote my music. And I don't think it's comfortable for anybody. It really starts with, like, because it's so personal, like, number one is like energy. It's really like, can I hang out with you? Do I trust you? In the beginning, I've had so many, particularly older men, talk about, oh, I used to work with big name artists, like name dropping, like all their accomplishments. And it was gross feeling. Like I felt like there's something, I'm like, you're giving me all these accolades, feels gross.
Yeah.
And so my brain was like, oh, but they're the best for the job. They're most accomplished or whatever. But like my body was just like, I don't know if I want these people close to me.
Yeah. So like, I can't work with them in like a tight room, like music recording studio or something.
Like when you think of music is the business of, like, I'm creating energy. Like you're creating frequencies and energies that people feel when they listen. And if you take that very seriously as a, like, I need to, like, I'm like, my number one job is to take care of my energy and take care of me, which has never been something, gymnast, yes. But even then it was like, I'm an adolescent and being molded by coaches and you don't really know yourself. As a founder, we always hear about, like, self-sacrifice, hustle, eating ramen, like, don't sleep. I'm like, I have to realize, like, my energy, my body, how I feel, I'm learning how to listen to that in a way that I've never listened to it before, because it's like the gift is inside, because what's inside is what's going to come out. And then that is the thing that, will first layer, like, do I feel good with you? And then we can even have a further conversation of, like, what can you do?
And so it's really like, that's almost the hiring I'm going to put words in your mouth to me, but it's sort of like the vibes that you feel with someone, and like, do we vibe, and like, do I feel good about being around you is almost the first criteria. And then what second would be, are you technically proficient and can, like, we do this stuff where I feel like we're on the same level, or I'm learning from you as an individual. Is that like the guideline?
Technically proficient, but also like in music, network is huge. Right? It's like, who do you know? It is important. Who do you know? Because it's a, VC's gatekept, but music and entertainment is even more so. So, it's a whole nother ball game of just like layers that you have to navigate. So it's like, is someone socially savvy? Because every person on your team is a direct representation of me as an artist.
Yep.
So if you have a shitty manager, then like it's already touching on me.
Okay.
And so it's like I'm building. It's literally like the team that's supposed to protect me as the talent. And so when you think about building an empire, that's kind of even more like from the traditional sense of the word. It's like if you're the queen of the empire, it's like, okay, who's going to be my sergeant, who's going to lead the troop? I have to trust him with my life, that he has the best interests of the empire, and that he's not going to screw me over. Because if I tell him a secret, if I tell him something, like, is this person going to, throw my name under the bus? And it's like there's enough horror stories in this, especially in this industry, I think, where you have you hear how much like a snake people can be. And so, when we say vibes, this also goes back to just everything I talk about in terms of like feminine power, which is, we say intuition, but intuition isn't just like feminine intuition. It's a form of data.
Totally.
It might not have a spreadsheet that you can look at, but it's like it's the fastest, processor in your body that can be like, let me take all the inputs of everything that I've ever, and then like come up with this feeling. And most of us are like, don't ignore it because it's just vibes. It's just whatever. And it's like, how many times have you looked back and said, I had that feeling that this was not going to work. That person had something. I didn't listen to it because they were feeding the mental brain all this evidence of why they were the right person.
Briefly talking a little bit, just going, first of all, like so much of the idea behind what you're talking about in the idea of just saying, I'm going to reinvent myself every single time. I find it to be like so inspiring, and just saying like, I'm going to go give all these things up. Because in many cases, a lot of the advice for entrepreneurs is actually like, you need to compound all the things you're learning, right? The more you compound it, the more you learn, the better you get at those things. And then the more likely you are to achieve success. You're in some ways saying the opposite, saying like you achieve some level of success in a field, and then you just jump into something brand new and different. You're essentially shutting down many parts of this really successful empire to go do this musical side of things. Like that is badass in and of itself. How do you know when it's the right time? Like as an entrepreneur, how do you know it's time to get off that one path and go to the next one and even make that jump?
It's really scary. I can't say I don't have an existential crisis anymore, but I haven't fully left that like kind of fear zone because I've just started again. Like I just released 2 songs as Baddie Lee, and I'm still in the transition of Lisa to Baddie Lee. Some people know me as Lisa. Everyone in LA knows me as Baddie Lee. So everyone in the industry knows me as Baddie Lee. So, I don't necessarily recommend to everyone to do what I do. Obviously I have maybe a different tolerance level for risk and chaos and different appetite for growth. But what has really driven me is in some way like soul alignment. Every time I ended something, it was because I didn't feel it was aligned with my truth anymore. And again, it's a feeling. And I think people maybe can relate to that in the sense of like relationships ending, where you're like, it's good, but maybe there's more, maybe it's not what I'm meant to be in. So I feel that with like these jobs or like career paths that I've tried where I was like, venture capitalist. I'm like, this is supposed to be it. How many people want to be a venture capitalist? And I'm like, I'm a builder. I realize like I find more joy in building than listening to people pitch me.
Same thing. I've done a lot of investing myself. I've had funds and stuff like that. And they're like, why are you still an entrepreneur and suffering every day? I'm like, I enjoy the building process more than just the investing where I sit on the sidelines and just like wait for that founder who works their ass off to get a big success. And like, I get to celebrate it too because I happen to have enough money to put in an investment at some point.
I mean, because investing, I think inherently, it's a money game.
Yeah.
That's it. It's like you're not in the game. Your money's in the game, but your soul isn't in it. Yeah, so you don't have that growth journey that you have as an entrepreneur or as, an artist or anything like that. Again, I say being an artist is just a form of being an entrepreneur nowadays, especially. Let's call it a creator.
Yeah.
Someone asked me how I was feeling recently about this, and I'm like, I feel like this is what I'm meant to do. And I don't think I ever felt that in anything else that I was doing. Like I thought, because I loved books growing up. Like I was always in the library, like I said, and I was like, my dream is to be an author, and I'm gonna write books, and I'm just gonna write book after book after book. I hated like slaving away writing my book. I'm like, this sucks. Like I don't like this journey.
Yeah.
I like that I'm proud of my result, and I'm proud that I pushed through. But with music, like with what I'm doing now, I'm like, I'm doing what I'm meant to do.
That's cool.
And
just feel like found who you are. So who knows? We'll have to do this conversation like 10 more years and see where you're at and see what the next big steps are. So a bunch of sort of lightning-ish round questions to finish things off. What's the most toxic advice women still get about success?
Act like a man.
What's an unpopular opinion about feminism? Unpopular opinion you have about feminism?
It's crazy how men and the patriarchy realized that women were the givers and creators of life, so they had to create a man in the sky to take credit for it.
Yeah, it's hilarious, but probably very true. What's something you believed in 5 years ago that you absolutely reject now?
That I have a terrible voice.
So everyone's gonna be like amazed when you become this massive rap artist.
Yeah, well, they're I'm already amazed. Now I'm like, man, I love my voice. I have a great voice, but yeah, I used to think like I have a terrible voice.
That's badass. Is there a certain lyric of your own, or maybe one of a famous artist that like you view as like almost a personal mantra?
Well, I'm just thinking of like one of my songs where I'm like, the mantra of the Bad Bitch Empire is bad bitches never settle. And in one of my songs, I'm like, bad bitches never settle. That's the mantra. I'm the boss. I do whatever I want to. I'm the prize. Ain't no man that I belong to. Just like that, cut you off. Sayonara.
I love that. That's dope. Is there one trait of your own that you consider like a superpower?
Self-reflection.
Is there a sacred ritual that you never skip?
I don't actually have a daily thing that I religiously commit to. Probably just saying what I'm grateful for each night before I go to bed.
It's a great one. I mean, important for gratitude is such an underappreciated mental model. Is there a single piece of advice that you would give to every entrepreneur, female or male, to be successful? Like if you want to wrap up what entrepreneurial excellence looks like and really is there sort of a single piece of advice you'd boil it all down to achieve excellence as an entrepreneur?
Focus on the version of yourself you want to become.
That's great. I love that. And then last question, given everything you just told me about where you are today in your life, Bad Bitch Empire, where is Bad Bitch Empire going in the next few years? Or is it becoming like the musical version of things? Like what is the future for Bad Bitch Empire since you've created this empire, but what's the future of it when you are also moving on in your own little way in some cases?
Lisa Carmen Wang has been the leader of the Bad Bitch Empire, and now, the Empress herself has changed, and now I'm becoming Baddie Lee. So first we'll have to see where I go. But, I see it like Bad Bitch Empire, there's going to be a stadium of hundreds of thousands of people singing the Bad Bitch Empire tracks, wearing the Bad Bitch Empire merch, the music unleashing their inner bad bitch. You come to a concert and you walk out transformed.
That is badass. I will be there celebrating and enjoying that as well. I think we all need to unleash our inner bad bitch. So Lisa, Baddie Lee, this was amazing. Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it. How can people get in touch with you before we end it? How can people find you, get in touch, learn more about you, your music, Bad Bitch Empire, you name it?
You can go to baddielee.com. That's where my songs are right now. And it's on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Amazon, everywhere you can find music. My 2 songs out right now are New Money, a unapologetic mantra for making bank,
Heck yeah.
and Hot Like Wasabi. So that's my single that just came out 4 days ago. And you can follow me on Instagram at Lisa Carmen Wang and Bad Bitch Empire, badbitchempire.com.
Amazing. Once again, thank you so much for being on. I know I'm inspired. I hope this also inspires a lot of other entrepreneurs to find their inner selves and take on that inner demon and go do and achieve at their highest potential. So thank you so much.
Thank you.